What's up, guys? Four-wheeler doctor back again. Today we're going to be tearing down this little 500 Foreman motor. I think it's 2007. I believe it's the same from about 2005 till 2011 or so. This is the one that had the little transmission noise coming from it. I'm going to tear this one down a little bit different than I do a lot. Most of the times I pull the top off first. I'm going to try to isolate the problem before I really dig all the way in. Start out taking this back cover off here and see if there's anything wrong with these back gears, because the noise kind of sounds like it's coming from back here, but you know, it makes so much noise when you're turning it over, it's hard to tell. So I'm going to tear that down and probably end up having to do the whole split the whole case and everything. I'm thinking it might be something internal, but hopefully it's just something out here in the back side. So to start off with, we'll remove this pull start. See, it don't have a handle, but they tied a knot in it, which is one way to do it. Remove the pull start, 4 8mm bolts, and then remove this stator. I guess it's the stator cover. There's a number of bolts around the outside of it. They're all 10mm, and I already unbolted the starter. So you just stick a screwdriver in this little crack here and pry it back, and the starter will pop out. So let me get all that stuff off, and I'll cut the camera back on right before I take the crankshaft bolt out. Alright guys, got all these bolts out of the stator cover. Now you got to take this the crankshaft bolt out. It's a 17mm. I usually just hit these with the impact. See if I can do it with this camera stand. Like that. And then it all slides off there. Didn't have the bolt all the way loose. There you go. All slides off. And then after you got all the bolts out of that stator cover, there's some little pry tabs here, and I think there's one on the bottom down there. Just take a screwdriver and a little hammer and tap on that pry tab. This thing has a gasket in there, so it sometimes it'll kind of get stuck. So you take your screwdriver and just pull it off there kind of square. It does have some little dowels on it that have to be kind of squared up before they will come off. There we go. Alright, and that's our stator. Take this clip off of these wires. Alright, put that in the box. Alright, next thing are these reduction gears for your starter. This one here is just a gear and a shaft. This one here will slide off of this shaft, and it's got a washer on it, so make sure you keep up with that. I usually just sit those to the side, and once you get this shaft out, you have to pull the flywheel off, but once you get this shaft out, just stick all that in the bag. This does have a gasket on it, so when we put it back together, we'll have to order another gasket because that one did break. Alright, now I'm going to take out all these bolts on this rear. It's called a rear crankcase cover, I'm sorry. Go around, there's probably 10 or so. So let me pull those out, and I'll cut the camera back on right before I knock that cover off. Alright, got all those bolts out. Now pretty much do the same thing as you did with the stator cover. Little pry tab right there. Take your screwdriver with your hammer and tap that until it breaks loose. This one here is just like the stator cover as well, as this got a gasket on it that'll stick sometimes. So alright, it's pretty loose. There you go, just slide it off there kind of square. Get your wires over here so they can go with it. Got your oil temperature sensor still plugged in on the bottom. I'm going to plug it right now. Alright. That gasket there actually looks like it pretty much stayed in place. Alright, well, don't look like like nothing wrong with these gears. I don't see any chunks missing, no teeth gone. So that looks like that's good. Next thing we're going to need to do is pull this flywheel off. This is about the only specialized tool you need for this operation is this puller. And this one here, I don't know what thread pitch and all that it is, but it's a Motion Pro puller, and it works pretty good. Get it threaded in there like that right there till it tightens down. Grab your socket and the impact. And I know that looked real easy, and it was, but to try to do that without that puller is pretty dang tough, because I've tried it before. So then your flywheel will just slide off, as well as that shaft I spoke of earlier. We'll stick all that in a bag with all the other gears, and then your little bearing here will fall out too sometimes. There's also a washer back here. You want to keep up with that thing, so what I like to do is go ahead and pull that off now while I'm here and thinking about it. It gets kind of stuck on the crankshaft because of the oil on it. So what I usually do is just take 2 screwdrivers, one on each side, and catch just the bottom of that washer and pop it off like that. Otherwise it'll stay stuck on there, and then cleaning all this up, you'll wind up losing that thing. So make sure you keep that together. I put a zip tie on those to hold them all together. Alright, next thing you need to take out is this reverse lever down here. This is what activates when you push the red button and pull the lever. So you twist it down with a pair of needle nose like that and wiggle it out, and it comes out, spring and all, just like that. And then these gears here, this is your output shaft, and this is your, I guess, your output shaft from your transmission. They just slide off of these shafts. They have both of them, or this top one has 2 washers on it, a real thin one on the back side and a fat one on the inside right there. Make sure you keep all that together. And the bottom one doesn't have a washer on it, it'll just slip off. So there you go. I'm gonna grab some bags and put all this stuff in it so I can keep it all together. And I'm probably gonna flip this thing around and start taking some stuff off the front side, just to see what we got going on up there. Hey, one other thing back here in the back that I've also misplaced before is there's one dowel right here that has an O-ring on it. What I like to do is take a cable tie, pull that out, get the O-ring and all that, put a cable tie around that rear cover, so I make sure I put that back in, because that's the oil passage, and you want to make sure that O-ring's put back in there. So let me pull that out and get some cable ties and some bags, and I'll cut the camera back on in a sec. Guys, one other thing you can do while you got this all down is go ahead and pull this output shaft out, but you want to make sure you slide this O-ring off the front side of it here, because it'll mess your seal up if you pull it out with the O-ring on there. And then this thing just slides right out, just like that. And what I like to do is just slide the O-ring back on there so I don't lose it. So, all right, put that in the box and flip this thing around and get started on the front side. All right, guys, like I mentioned before, this is a electric shift bike, so it's got the shift motor and all that on the front. I'm gonna take that off next. There's some 10mm bolts you got to take out. One here at the top, one kind of off to the side, one right at the base of that motor, and then one over between the motor and the angle sensor. Pull all those out and stick them in my cardboard. Real quick like. And then that will just, you can kind of wiggle it around with your hand, it will just come off normally. Just like that. There's a couple gears and things in here, you want to hold on to these, make sure you don't lose them. This one here, it's got some pretty nasty grease in there. Hang on to all those, and then there's also a spacer here and a little dowel. Keep all those together, and I'm gonna stick all that in the bag, and then you're ready to start taking your front cover off. Alright, I'll cut the camera back on once I get it ready to come off and loosen up all these bolts around the outside of it. Alright guys, got all the bolts out of here. Much like those back covers, this is the same situation. Got some little pry tabs here on the sides. Just take your hammer and screwdriver and knock those off. Knock those out. Alright, that side's separating. There you go. It starts coming off. Just grab it and pull it off there square. Just like that. One little O-ring did come off inside of here. It goes on this shift shaft here. Make sure you hang on to that. Did tear the gasket up on this one, so we'll have to have another front gasket for it. This bike's got about 6,000 miles on it. And man, it actually looks real good in here. The cam chain still got a lot of life left in it. I don't know, this bike looks real good for 6,000 miles. Kind of making me wonder what in the world might be making this thing tick. But anyway, I guess we'll find out eventually. I'm gonna take these two, well, this nut and the other nut off, but we got to pull some of this stuff off of this change clutch over here first. Grab me a bag. This little thing with the balls, 3 balls and the spring on it, put that in the bag. This little arm, it just slides out. You can stick your finger in this other bearing, pull that out. This washer that goes on that shaft, and then you can slide this arm here off. Throw it in the bag. We got some more stuff's gonna need to go in there too, but we'll catch that later. So let me get I think those are I think that's a 24 millimeter. Might be 27 millimeter, I'm sorry. Nuts to get those off. It's tough to do if you don't have an impact. Yep, they are staked on there. You can take and bend a little stake out. I never had much trouble with just running them off with the stake on. It really didn't. You don't have any threads right on the very end out there, so it'll still get them off like that. And this clutch here, it's not pressed on there, but it's on there kind of tight. I've seen people take hammers and tap on the back of them. I really didn't want to bend up the clutch bell no more than I have to, so what I normally do is just take my big 2-jaw puller, slide it on there, and you can about do this by hand with the 2-jaw. Run it on like that, and my puller from years of abuse is warped up a little bit, so I can actually take my puller and twist it to the easy now, not twist the camera to the side, twist the puller to the side, and it will pull this clutch off like that right there. Tighten it up just like that. Tighter than you can pull off there with your hand, but not tighter than you can pull off with a little 2-jaw. While I got this out, I'm going to slide this back and check the clutches in it. They actually look surprisingly well too. So I won't look at replacing the clutches on this one. And then we're going to take that nut off of the change clutch there. These all spin in the same direction, standard direction. Slide that off. Make sure this little collar here comes off with it too. Lay it to the side, and then we'll take off this guard here, and might pull the oil pump out too while I got it here. I do need to spin this thing around to where it's a little closer to top dead center. You can see our cam marks aren't matching up. There's a tick mark up under here. I don't know if you can see that or not. Tick mark right there, and we line it up with this tick mark right here on the cam, and that'll be top dead center. So I'm gonna line that up. It really don't make that much difference at this point because we've got it tore down, but I will line it up when I pull it out. It makes getting your cam out a little easier when it's at top dead center. So I'm gonna get this clutch cover off, these 3 bolts on the oil pump. Also slide this gear off, and have it in on there now. It's a gear and a washer. I'll use a zip tie those together. So I'll get those off. I'll pull the tensioner off, 2 bolts there, and then I may start taking this out. I'll cut the camera back on before I start removing the gear change stuff. Alright guys, I got the oil pump out, the tensioner unbolted, and now the clutch guard. Now I'm trying to get this stuff out of here for the change clutch. The first thing you need to do with that is unhook this little spring from this arm here. Just pick it up, slide it to the side, and then you can slide this one arm off like that, and then loosen this center bolt up, 10mm. Remove that washer and this big old washer thing, this thing that looks like a golf divot tool. There's a O-ring on this shaft here. Pull it off. And then the last thing is this thing that looks like a star. You can pry back on this little arm right here to get pressure off of the star thing, and then the star thing will slide right off. And sometimes there's a pin sticking out of the center of the shift drum. Sometimes they'll come off and sometimes they won't. This one here will come off, so make sure you stick that in the bag, because moving this thing around you'll end up losing it. So let me get all that stuff bagged up, and I'll show you how to get the cam out. Alright, now I'm going to try to get this cam out of here. First thing you need to do is take this 12mm bolt out. It's got a little arm on it that holds the cam in, and then the 2 10mm bolts that hold the actual cam sprocket on. So this 12mm comes out with this arm, like I said, and then the 2 10s. Sometimes they'll have Loctite on them, so sometimes they're tough. Oh, come right off there, just like that. And then you can slide this gear off of the cam and off of the crankshaft. I'm probably going to just leave the cam in here until I get this top end done, because I think if I pull this out, though, there's cups on the end of the that ride on the cam. I think they'll fall down into the motor. It really don't matter, because we're going to take it all the way down anyway. But like I say, normally I have the top end completely disassembled on this before I pull the cam out. So I'm going to leave the cam in there for right now, take the top end down, and then we'll pull the cam out. Alright, I'll cut the camera back on and get started up on the top. Alright guys, got a little different camera angle here, so hopefully if this thing quits spinning, you'll be able to see what I'm doing. Alright, so I'm going to pull this valve cover off. The bolts you'll need to take out are the ones here, and here. These 4 in the center, I don't think they come out. Let me confirm that. Yeah, I'm thinking those 4 in the center are just the short ones. Actually, I'm sorry I said all those, but I didn't take the very center bolt out. That's why it won't come off right now. These just hold the cam followers in. Yep, that's all you got to take out. So 2, 4, 6, 8, and don't forget the middle one like I just did, number 10 right there in the center. Stick these in my cardboard, and then you can pull that valve cover off. I guess you call that valve cover rocker arm holder or something, because technically these little covers on the side here are your valve covers. So get all these put up real quick and pull it off. I've already loosened up the valve covers just to make it a little easier when I do get ready to put it all back together and adjust the valves on it. So this just lifts right up. It has a metal gasket in here, like a reusable gasket, and the push rods are in here too. I want to go ahead and pull those out, wipe the oil off of them, stick them in the box. And then lift up on this gasket to get it off like that. And then now we're going to take out these 6 14mm bolts that hold the actual head on, the head bolts. I don't think I have a 14mm here, so let me get it, pull those off real quick. They do have it'll be a nut and a washer on all of these. How about let me cut the camera off, because that compressor's probably going to cut on. You won't be able to hear nothing. I'll cut it right back on. Alright, so now I've got the all the bolts out of that. The other thing you need to take out, so that's all the acorn bolts. You do have two 10mm bolts here that do hold the head down. So don't forget those, because it won't come off. Won't come off if you still got them hooked in. Alright, so now what you can do, sometimes you can just wiggle this thing and it'll come off. Yeah, that's what's going to happen in this case. So the head will just pick right up. A little oil in there. Looks surprisingly good for 6,000 miles. This bike wasn't smoking or anything. Just had that noise coming from the transmission. So the cylinder and all that looks good. I'm probably gonna still bore this thing out just because it's got 6,000 miles on it and I'm this far into it, so may as well do a top end on it while we're here. So clean up that oil a little bit. Got the head gasket off. Alright, now to get this cylinder off, 2 more 10mm bolts here up on the top side. That, get those out, and then you can kind of take a screwdriver. You don't want to pry on it too bad because you don't want to break the fins off. But there's a base gasket on here that sometimes is tough to get loose. Yeah, this one popped right up. So just kind of pry it up just a little bit all the way around. Wiggle this thing and it'll come off. Just like that. Man, it's crazy how good this thing looks after all these miles. And I know this guy bought this bike new and never had anything done to the motor on it. But it looks dang good. Cylinder, I don't know if you can see that or not, barely has any lip in it where it's got any wear. Pretty impressive. Guess that's what you get when you buy a Honda. Alright, so now I'm going to take and pull these followers out of here. I think I talked about those earlier with the cam. That way we can go ahead and pull the cam out. These things will be full of oil too, so just dump the oil out in the drain pan. You can usually just stick your finger in there and pull them up for a good little ways, and you also can stick your finger under the bottom. And there's your second one. And then your cam will just slide right out once that's done. There's the cam. Stick that in the bag. Whatever I did with it. Alright, so that's that. And next thing to do will be to start pulling the crankcase apart so we can get in there to the transmission and see what we got. So I'm going to flip this thing over. It's easier to pull this case apart from the front side. So I'll flip it over, loosen these bolts up on the back side, which there's not many of them, and then flip it back to the front, and that's when we can pull it apart. Alright, let me grab the camera. Alright, what we got here, sorry about that, y'all hang on to your seats. So we got a few bolts here to take out. This one here, one here, one here, one here, couple there around that motor mount, a few at the bottom. So there's right good many bolts on the back side. Some these motors kind of vary. Sometimes there's a lot on the back and not many on the front, and vice versa. So this one's got a right good many on the back. Take all those out. You also don't want to forget this one bolt in the center right here. That does hold the crankcase together. You can pry and beat, and it won't come apart if that bolt's still in there. So take all those out, flip it back around, and pull some out the front side. I'll cut the camera back on when I get back to the front. Alright guys, I got all the bolts out the back side. I did go ahead and knock these motor mounts out of both sides. And you're going to also have to unbolt this bracket here. There's a bolt on the back side, and then 2 10mm up here, because this will not let the case split with that bolted up. And then on the front side here, the only bolt you have to take out is this one here, one right here, one right here, and that's it. 3 bolts on the front, and then your case will come apart. So let me get those loosened up and this bracket removed, and I'll cut the camera back on right before I split it. Alright guys, hopefully this camera will stand up while I'm prying these things apart. Alright, there's 2 pry points here, one here and one here. Once you get all the bolts out, you can just take a hammer. This does have a gasket between it, so sometimes they'll get a little stuck. This is not stuck. So you can take and pry on the surface, but I like to try to do it at the motor mount so you don't mess up your sealing surface, because your motor mounts don't really have any oil there between them. There you go. It'll come off of here, lift up on this arm here so it doesn't get caught on your your crankshaft, and wiggle this thing off. Like that, and it comes off. Your shift shaft will be stuck in here, and there's also a washer on it right here. Make sure you keep your washer with your shift shaft. There is a sleeve here on this cam. God, I keep saying cam. On this crankshaft, it's stuck on here with the oil, but it will come off too. I like to stick that back in that crank bearing. It just slides back in the bearing. Alright, and I hadn't really dug into this thing very far, but I could already see the problem. See something missing there? Got a tooth gone. Real sure how that happened. This bike is it is a 4-wheel drive, and it's got some mud tires on it, but this is a electric shift bike, which are, you can't do neutral drops and all that stuff with them. It's not ridden that hard, just got a lot of miles on it, but must have been some type of defect in maybe just a gear or something. But what that does is it'll leave a gap. You can hear that. It's just spinning it over. That's it, jumping that tooth. Sometimes that can mess up your mating gear, and it hadn't messed it up. But I'm gonna pull all this stuff out of here and see There may be something else, because this thing was, I don't know, I've torn these things down a ton of times, but I don't know which one of these gears mean what. I can only assume this is first gear, just because it's the first one out here. It could be fifth gear for all I know, but I do know it was making noise in first gear and second gear. So you would think you could check the two sets of gears for those, and there'd be teeth missing, and I don't see them right now. But all right, so what we do to take this apart is first thing I like to do is pull this. This is the shift fork shaft out. Just slide it completely out, and then pull your shift drum out. It slides right out too. I have to kind of rotate it. One of the shift forks fell. So then you can have your shift fork. The shift forks have a it's got a FR stamped on the front. This is the front of the motor. Your next one will have a C stamped on it. Slide that on there. I'm just doing this to keep up with everything. And then this one's got a R, POR actually it says, but R is the rear one. So just put all those back together on your shaft. And then the next thing to take out is, this is a reverse gear. You slide that shaft up and the gear will come off. I'm just going to check all these gears on this thing to make sure everything's good. That reverse gear looks good. And then these two sets of gears will actually come out of there together. This one does have a washer on it, so make sure you keep up with that. So you pick up both of these pretty much at the same time. Kind of wiggle it around a little, and they'll come out kind of as one piece. They have this shaft here does have a washer on the back side of it. Make sure you want to make sure it didn't get caught in the case there. So we'll lay these down and we'll look at them one by one. So it doesn't appear I have any additional teeth missing on this one. Nope, it looks good. And then this big drum of teeth, naturally we're missing this one. None missing on that one. None missing on that one. Oh, I about slipped the whole thing off of there. Nope, I don't see any more missing. So I believe all of our noise is coming from that one tooth there being broke. What'll happen sometimes is that tooth will fall down and get hung up in some of these other ones, and it'll just chew a lot of stuff up. It does help that on these Honda motors the gears are suspended up out of the oil a little bit, so you don't run quite the risk of that happening, but it can still happen. Pull this oil screen out. It's got a few little metal shavings in it that could have been from the gear. I don't know where the gear is, or the remaining tooth. It could have come out in an oil change, and it could be sitting in the very bottom down here. Let me drain a little bit of this oil out, and we'll see. And folks, there you go. There's the tooth that broke off. So now I just got to go find a gear. There's a good chance I might have one. I've got a few transmissions here for various different bikes, and if I can find one that doesn't have a gear, or that's got all the teeth in the gear, I may be able to start putting this thing back together. Alright guys, appreciate you checking out the video. We're going to probably still end up doing a top end on this, so I'll do another assembly video on it. But this is the disassembly and troubleshooting of the transmission, and you can use this for various other things. You can actually go ahead and press your crank out if you need to replace the crank with this video. Biggest thing on it is getting your little tick marks here lined up. Pretty much anything. So that's splitting the case. Appreciate you guys checking my video out. Like, subscribe, check out my other videos, and Y'all have a good day.